Okay. Well, welcome tonight to my second installment of standing up here for TechKnow. And when we're done for tonight, there's going to be a raffle. So when you came through the door, randomly, it's like the 8th person who came in is going to be the presenter for next month. Is that how that works? I don't think that was me this time. So I happened to actually what ended up happening was I was asking Tony, he goes, so what's going to be presenting next week? And he said, how about you? And I talked about protecting yourself from the Internet of Things, because one of the podcasts that I listened to was just talking about how to set up 3 routers in a configuration to protect yourself from the Internet of Things. And I've been going through myself all the time. It's like, I can do that in one. So I kind of had this thing going on, and I was hoping that would be a motivation for me to finish this whole project, getting it done in time. And so that's what brings me up here today. I guess, you know, if you were here for the first time I presented, I was talking about passwords. And one of the things about passwords that was kind of an issue is like, you know, when I started being on the internet, you know, it was like nothing was password protected, and the first things were there. And I'm going to be ashamed to admit, but I think the first password I put in one of my routers was please. And it sounded cute at the time. And unfortunately, though, that password stuck, and I kept reusing it and reusing it. And no, I do not reuse that password anymore. But it's a function of that sprawl about where things are going on. Well, now we're coming up to a time of I'm going to babble, I guess. Internet of Things is more and more, the computer's in my way. The more and more things that are around, people are saying, hey, we can connect this to the internet. Wouldn't it be great if I could use my smartphone to turn on and off my lights? So somebody turns around, takes a light bulb, puts an internet chip in it, voila, it has internet connectivity. And in all purposes, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. You know, somebody says, hey, you know, maybe I should have one on my refrigerator that could have a picture of the camera so I can look and see what I have in the refrigerator, or so it could show me weather. And, you turn around and look at all the things now that are internet enabled. Now, the thing kind of comes into is that they're all great, and if they worked exactly how the people designed, I don't think there'd be ever any problems on it. But case in point, I mean, even from a very secure operating system, Windows had a problem with their RDP client on the servers probably about 2 years ago, that there was a hack that allowed you, if you had exposed the remote desktop protocol, so you could remote into your machine, and you expose that through your firewall so you could get into it from home or anywhere. And I definitely know places that I've done that, and probably a little bit irresponsible on myself that I've done the same thing, is that the particular exploit that came out didn't matter if you didn't know the administrator password. The hack allowed you to get administrator access into a machine just because this RDP port was open, and they were able to bypass it on it. Wasn't designed that way, it was a bug in the system on it. So the more of these, but now you're getting to the devices like the light bulbs and things that aren't even probably ever going to be patched. So you put them in, they have an internet connection, they don't get patched. If there's a vulnerability, there's going to be some of these things by Chinese companies or small fly-by-night companies. They build a batch of them, company goes away. So you might have devices in your house that company doesn't exist, they don't care anymore, comes up with a security exploit and it's sitting in your house. So I guess the worry about it is there's a scale. You have a scale, and it's like simplicity and security, and unfortunately, you have to pick some place along that scale that you want to live. If you want something really secure, you're a long ways from simplicity. If you want to go to the simplicity part, you move away from security. It's hard to get those two things together on it. So like I said, I was listening to a podcast and from a security expert, Security Now, and on the Twit network, and he was talking about, well, I have the solution. You take 3 Linksys routers, and you hook your internet connection comes into one, and you take the LAN connections of that, feed off 2 other ones, and then you put all your the important stuff, your computers and the things you do your daily living off behind one of those secondary routers, and then you connect all your Internet of Things behind another router on it. So basically it's the Internet of Things devices never can see or touch your computer or your high value types of things that you use on a regular basis on it. And it's like, that really sounds like a pretty good idea. You actually have two networks at home, one for the Internet of Things types of devices. So even if one of those Internet of Things devices gets compromised, they turn around and use that as scanning or use that as a jump off point to hit other devices in your network. No matter what they do, because you had that secondary layer of security, they can't get over to your network and maybe install ransomware on your computer or use that as a foothold in to do other things. Use it as a sniffer, packet sniffer, to watch the traffic going by and seeing, credit card information go by if there's certain things and stuff going on. So I look at it as we're kind of at an early stage of it right now, but if we think in that mindset of what could people use that equipment for to hack my network, maybe we can build our networks to be more secure, and at least we won't be the low-hanging fruit when somebody figures out how to exploit the next big thing and stuff on it. I've heard a lot of recently, there's been a product advertised, and I think I've heard different advertisements even on commercial advertising things on it. The Ring video doorbell, really cool device. You just turn around, unscrew your regular doorbell from the wall, you put this device up, and somebody comes up to your door, rings your doorbell, it rings your phone app wherever you are, and all you have to do is turn around, click on the button, it has a camera on it so you can see who's at the door, and you can say, yeah, hi, how's it going? It's like, well, I'm here to do this. So I'll just leave. I'm out back right now, just leave the package at the front door and leave. Now the concept of it is they said a lot of times when burglars come up in the daytime, they'll come up, ring the doorbell, nobody answers the doorbell, then they sneak around in the back, break into your house and steal things on it. So this way, you always come up with the illusion that somebody is at home. Or, there's other cool things about it. It actually is a motion detector camera as well. So, if somebody comes up to the door, it'll actually record the video, send it to you so you can watch the UPS man or the delivery man come up, drop the package on your door. You can see who TP'd your house if you have that particular problem. But it's all recorded and stuff on it. Like I said, it was a really simple install on it. You turn around and unscrewed the doorbell button from your house. If you had a wired doorbell, you hooked in the two wires, put it on, it comes with all the tools. If you've never had a doorbell on it, it's battery operated. The battery lasts a year in the box. And you can just use your phones, your smart devices to answer it, or they have a remote ringer for it. The device gets the connectivity through Wi-Fi. And the initial version of it, somebody came up with a hack. You could turn around, and if you were able to pull it off, there was a way that you could get your Wi-Fi password off of this box from the outside. So this is sitting on the outside of your house. Somebody could remove it, do some configuration on it, and then even if your Wi-Fi was secure in your house, you had a good hard crypted password. Because this was connected to the internet, it had the ability to extract what your SSID or your security password was, pre-shared key, and then that would allow them to connect to your network and do whatever things they want to have. Now, the likelihood that somebody's going to sit there and pass out thousands of email messages through your Wi-Fi or surf inappropriate material, I don't know exactly to what end on it, but it's still a foothold that would have put them in your network. An internet connected device on the outside of your house, kind of hard to set up for. Now we were discussing too a little bit earlier about, the other things are internet connected. Now you have video cameras in your house, turn around, monitor your house and stuff on it. If anything that connects to the internet is a potential spot for somebody to get in on part of it. So, so how do you protect yourself from it? And probably the first thing on it, and I'm going to have to raise my hand. I don't want you to raise your hand on it, but the Wi-Fi at my house is not encrypted. I didn't really, again, convenience. When I turned around and had somebody come over to the house, I didn't want them to have asked me for what my key was for my wireless on it, so I didn't put one on it. And my reasoning still has been, is I live out in the country in the middle of nowhere, who's going to come in and do it? But the other problem with it is, and I mean, I've been telling schools this for many years on the side of it, you should always put some sort of pre-shared key on your guest network. Don't leave it open. Make it simple. Put it up on the wall for everyone to find it. Because that one level of protection, if you have a wireless access point that doesn't have a key on it, it works like the original hubs did in technology. But basically, every device is able to see the traffic. And with software on a computer connected to that access point, you can see all the traffic from all the other devices connected to that access point. So you could run a simple tool like Wireshark and extract passwords from non-encrypted things. Email is notorious for not being, or has been known for not being encrypted. So the moment you have a mail client that connects to retrieve a message, in the clear, it turns around and says, help, username xyz at xyz.com, there's the password, and you can extract it and pull that particular part off. But if you have that pre-shared key in your wireless, so if you put the security, turn the security on, doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you could have the pre-shared key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but as long as that key is on, then every session, every device is on its own separate encryption key. So basically, people are able to see all the traffic, but everyone's encrypted differently, so you lose the ability to see that traffic on it. So from an internet things type of part of it, you want to have that encryption turned on so that each Internet of Things device has its own separate encryption to it, so they can't sit there and sniff the traffic going on that public side of the network. And then the other thing is what kind of got me thinking on that 3-router situation that the guy from Steve Gibson from Security Now was talking about was, it was 3 Linksys routers, you had 3 blue boxes, you had some patch cables, and I have a mail server at house, so in order to pipe through my traffic into mail server, I'd have to configure 2 devices to make it all work. And I'd been working with a company called Microtik for school devices on it, and it was really easy to configure another Ethernet port on the box to let me accomplish the same thing. So I had to set up a private network on it. And I'll pass this little box around for it. I did a little bit of research. They came out with a brand new box. All right.
Someone hacked our table.
I'm getting taller now.
You were shrinking on camera. It was amazing. Alice in Wonderland.
The company Microtik came out with this little box. This is the equivalent of your wireless access point router on it. There's a couple things that are unique about it. First item, it's $21. So $21 has wireless built into it. It's already set up as an internet router, and the directions on the bottom are pretty much true. Connect the internet cable to port 1, connect your computers to ports 2 through 5, set your IP configuration to automatic, power on and enjoy. And to configure it, you just go to the web browser and you type in an IP address. And of course, the one bad thing, the username is admin and there's no password. First thing you want to do is change the password on it. But I'll pass this around here if you want to take a look at it. The cool thing about this box is that, so this particular box has 4 Ethernet ports. One of them set for the WAN, the internet connection going into it. And by default, the other 3 are set up as like a switch. So you plug a device into any of those 3 ports. But the OS that comes on it, you can configure any port. You can configure all 3 ports to be on different networks and are completely isolated from the other ones. So you set up port 2 for your regular computer network. You can set up port 3 to set it up that would feed something else on a completely different IP address range, completely isolated, but still be able to get in and out to the internet.
So it's essentially isolated VLAN?
Well, it's not just VLAN tagging. It would be like untagged VLANs on a regular switch. I mean, they are truly, each port is actually set up independently, and the software inside is what you can configure it to be bridged, so then it'll work like a switch, or you can make separate configurations on each port. Now, This is their low-end model. Their high-end model, and they got everything in between it, but their high-end model is, I believe, 10 gigabit per second ports, and it's capable of something like 1 million packets a second was the rates for it. And it comes in at a whopping price of $3,900. And it's like, for what it is compared to other big iron stuff on it, it's really inexpensive on it. This would be, this would probably handle this $21 version. I think I paid $10 for shipping when I brought this unit in. I've configured it. I was able to do the Ethernet part of it. I'm still kind of working on the wireless side of it. It has one wireless radio built into it. And I was able to configure a separate SSID for my Internet of Things devices on it, but it's still talking on the same radio. So I'm looking to have another, that's why I brought all this stuff up here. So yeah, here's the box. This is the one that I was just talking to it. So it powers off of a USB charger. So it's, it comes with its own power cord and stuff on it. But they do have, this is the one. And I haven't played around with this, so I'm thinking that you might want this second radio set up for it. So I might configure like port number 4 on the box for my Internet of Things on it and tie this to this separate wireless access point. Then I know I'm completely isolated on my Internet of Things router on it. This was I closed the screen that was on. This was like $25 as well, that particular wireless access point was set up for it. Not necessarily the speediest thing, but it's basically just saying from a cost perspective, there's not a reason you can't do it. There's some really low-end pieces on it. They have a nice mid-range unit for about $100 as well, and I actually have that box installed at a few locations, the $100 box. Even has a little 2-inch touch screen interactive LCD screen for doing some configuration, which is not necessarily the easiest thing to work with, but it's kind of cool graphs and stuff on it. Questions, I guess, on it. It's probably going to become something, everything seems to be more sophisticated as time goes on. The first time that ransomware came out where, it encrypted your computer, and they asked you for Bitcoins to come with it. It was such a clever way that they did it. The thing is from the hackers, they're smart. They did it in such a way that the only way you could get, you had two choices: lose your data or pay them the money to get the key, because it wasn't like an easy way to break the key. And all these attacks are getting better all the time as well on it. So, I know what it was. The other really cool things about that MikroTik box, the MikroTik OS, and I do have this set up in a few places, has built into it a VPN server. So you can set it up as a PPTP VPN server. You can set it as OpenVPN. All that is built into it. So I actually have it sitting in my office. So when I want to connect to my equipment at the office now, I closed all my regular inbound ports so I can't get into it. But when I sit at my desk or even when I'm out on the road, I can just open up my VPN, and then I'm into my inside network on it. And that was really easy to set up. Yes, Dan?
Can we tear this apart?
Hmm?
Can we take this apart?
You're going to be highly disappointed, but yeah, sure.
Have you had them apart? Did you take it apart yet?
It's just a little board.
Is the Wi-Fi chip built on the board?
Well, I haven't taken that one apart, so might as well. Yeah, go ahead.
It's 22 bucks.
So has point-to-point VLAN capabilities. The one thing, I actually installed a bigger brother of this unit out in all the school districts, and I use it for diagnostics. And so there's a really nice bandwidth speed test. So if you have two of these boxes, you can go into one and say, I want to do a speed test from this box to that box. And you tell it the speed you want to go, and it'll push that much traffic until you turn it off. So when I'm looking at my bandwidth utilization, so if I'm trying to diagnose a problem and things aren't working well, a school district calls and says, hey, I don't think I'm getting the bandwidth that I'm supposed to get. All I have to do is go into the site and say, yep, I want you to run 150 megs to this box, push go, and it'll push 150 megs until I tell stop. But then I can look at the interface and see are there any errors, what packets dropped, is there anything unusual on the traffic. That's built into it. It has a proxy, web proxy on it. I haven't used that, but put a hard drive on it and it'll cache your hard drive stuff on it. There's a lot of technology built into their OS and stuff on it. Not yet. I don't remember seeing the print server part. It does have a radius server. It has the web port, like the hotel access system on it. You know, the gated garden or whatever it is. So you could, have a guest account. It'll take you to a part and say, oh, do you accept my terms? Or, I'm sorry, it's going to cost you $10 to connect to the internet a day. Would you like to turn around and?
It has that built in.
It has that built in.
Put that in the house.
And the rule set, the firewall rule set is really, the part for, okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent. So this is the end of my internet thing. This is going to be me. This is Scott Babel rant part on it. But the good and the bad thing about it is I've worked with a lot of other firewalls like Sonic Wall and other things, and they built this really nice GUI, and when you created rules, the rules did a lot of things in the background. This one gives you all the things in the background that you can play with. So there's a lot of, it's in some ways it might be just a little bit harder to configure. There was a great video that I watched, tech guy Greg Solwell. It was Internet Basics is the name of the video, or Microtech Basics, and that was my training part of it. It's a 45-minute video, and then I would just turn around and I'd play that video, go to the part, and it goes, now how did I set this part up again? Go to that spot, and I would follow through, and so now I really have it. So to set up the net, so if I had to build it from scratch, it's just you go into firewall rules and you say allow traffic from the inside to the outside, and you tell it to masquerade, and all of a sudden it's changing. It's changing the inside IP addresses, your 10 dot or 192 dot addresses, to the public one and routing things through. Firewall stuff was pretty easy to set up once I understood it, but it was like I was normally used to that application doing all that work in the backside for it, and so now you kind of have to think about it a little bit more when you're setting it up. But that it's a lot of power built into one little tool. So 22 bucks. It was shipping was $10 that time, that particular part of it. So that's the end of my babble. So what does anyone think? Anyone else have any ideas? Because I'm not going to say I'm an expert at a lot of stuff on it. So this is more just me rambling. So
Questions, comments?
did you get your question? What was?
It was uneventful.
Green lights will still come on.
Hope so, after we took it apart.
Avoid the warranty.
So, I have a question about like big networks and doing client isolation and stuff like that. So, like, I know the Ubiquities, they support guest networks, things like that. When you're like doing a big network, do you require like Windows authentication with your private networks? So say you post a password on the wall, our Wi-Fi password is 1234, but then they also have to be authenticated in, say, Active Directory or some kind of LDAP.
I think I have, we've set up some radius authentication pieces on it where we've hard-coded in like the MAC addresses of devices, and I know I went to one school and I was really proud of it. I helped the school set up their network. We came up with a really, I think it was 64 character random gobbledygook for their pre-shared key, and the students got into a Mac and turned around and pulled the key out, and it became common knowledge. And
But I mean, the thing would be is you'd still post your easy 8-character password, right? And then you actually do authentication with maybe even a proxy or something in the AP that would, like radius with the username and password instead. So they have to have a valid network account. Their MAC address doesn't matter. They just have to have a valid network account in order to get on the internet.
yeah, so this kind of comes out where it's going a little bit beyond what my part's on. So my concerns on the backside are going to be how does it do that isolation? Because even if you set VLAN tags, theoretically, if you were able to get a device on in that trunk someplace, you can sniff it. I mean, all the traffic would go across it. It's just a couple bits set on the packet.
Right.
So if something was scanning at layer 2, did you gain anything on security? I mean, you're making it harder. You know, each step you're raising the level of expertise to know somebody would be able to hack it. But, but you know, I kind of do tend to go to that convenience side more than anything else. Now, like I said, I'll make this a roundtable because, like I said, I'm not planning on being an expert here. If somebody has.
I guess my thing of it is looking at something like that, it's like how many layers of complexity do you want to go and add in and have to fix later on? I mean, what's the simple solution? You know, when you sit there and you think about doing a radius or doing authentication or running through a proxy, I mean, what's the next level that you want to sit there and add on your wireless network to make it secure enough? But then when something breaks, at what level is that sitting there breaking at? I mean, is it in your radius or is it in your MAC filter or is it in your proxy is now down or is it, you know, and look at your troubleshooting time. I mean, you could go and increase it 5 times, 6 times, 10-fold to make a secure network.
Yeah, and there has to be some particular part of it. I do know one of the things I was looking at, and this was what I was hoping to have a little bit better on the wireless thing. It does have an option in each of the network settings, especially in wireless, to disable rebroadcast of packets. So devices in order to find themselves will send out a broadcast packet. It's just basically a packet that it goes out and says, hello, I'm looking for, and everybody is able to hear it, and then the one that's supposed to respond will normally respond back and says, yeah, I'm here, and they start a regular conversation. This has the ability to break that part of it, so when this device turns around, puts out the broadcast, it's encrypted, so the access points has to send it back out on all the other ports. This box will turn around, you can check a checkbox, and it won't send it out, so no one else will hear it. So it'd be like me going, you know, and it'd be a private conversation with, I could only talk to a very specific thing. So it would stop the traffic from going in between devices. The trouble is I hadn't had time to try it out. I don't know, there's some things you can turn onto it that are really cool, but would really break the network, and I don't know I haven't had a chance to play with it to really know for sure how that would work.
Things that I worry about with Internet of Things and stuff like that is that a lot of those devices are designed to talk to each other. So a light bulb can talk to another light bulb in order to get back to your core. And what's your risk of your neighbor putting in some kind of IoT router that all of a sudden he puts in a Belkin light bulb and you have a Belkin light bulb, and all of a sudden your light bulb is accessible from your neighbor's network because he didn't secure it like you. I worry about things like that with IoT. And I don't know how you secure something like that because these people want those devices on the internet so you can use your smartphone on LTE and it detects your distance from home and turns your lights on. You know?
Maybe we could go into a copper siding business and Faraday cages around everyone's house.
No more cell phones.
Well, you got a repeater for it.
Happen with my mind, wouldn't there be on the light bulb a beacon button? Like to me, in my mind, how that would work is I would screw my light bulb in. I'd have my router sitting over here, kind of like Bluetooth, right? I'm like, okay, I'm about to turn on some device and start listening. I'd screw my light bulb in and go. It would look for each other. It would connect, authenticate. I could go to light bulb to do that.
See, these, so our light switches in here are IoT devices. They use Z-Wave on the back end, and they connect to a Z-Wave router, basically, and then that connects it to the internet. And that's an easy way to like separate yourself. But some of these, like the new Bluetooth devices, the Bluetooth, we'll call it Bluetooth, you know, they can talk to each other. And that's just what worries me.
Well, and it's just like, of course, there's always a spec. This is how it's supposed to work, but it doesn't mean that there isn't something missed in program, because security is extremely hard on programming. And you know, I program just a little bit compared to some of the other people here, but you know, it doesn't take much of somebody to write a piece of code in it that says, you know, that could theoretically a Stack Overflow or something on it, and then, you know, it's like, oh yeah, well, I don't need to see that button on it. You're sending me the right, I can see that, I can replay it, now I can talk to it, and then enough to wedge in enough code for it that all of a sudden they can own it. And so.
What about like some type of interference for wireless networks to like, you know, bring down Internet of Things?
So Dan, interestingly, has this device called the Wi-Fi Pineapple. Where its whole job is to become the wireless access point in the room. So what it does is it connects to our ruckus up there and would send de-auth requests to the ruckus. And so the ruckus would be de-authenticating everybody, and everyone would be connected to Dan's access point. So, and you literally are on the internet using Dan's computer and surfing that way.
And that's almost a vulnerability of your device, especially machines, because the machines want to make your life easy. So they immediately go, SSID, TechKnow, I was connected to you. Are you there? Are you there? And the pineapple's like, yeah, I'm right here. So, and we're like, go ahead and connect, we're open. And it just auto connects for you, pretending to be the AP you just were on. And all your traffic, just man in the middle is right through it.
Well, I guess more to my point was, let's say that you had a house that was filled with light bulbs that are on, and it's even a secured private network, but they're all wireless, but somebody comes in with some sort of device that can basically broadcast enough RF to shut that wireless network down.
I don't know, you guys know this better. I would assume that the light bulbs have an on-off tick. Because I'm assuming that, I don't think does the light bulb continuously check back to its base, so am I supposed to be on?
No, it's either on or off.
Right,
So
so I don't think someone could just walk in and like black you out.
you'd be able to make it so they couldn't shut the light bulb off or turn it on
Right.
by interfering.
Yep.
But I don't think you could probably make it change unless you had access. Right.
Okay.
Now, it could be, like, what are the old garage door openers, I mean, that kind of got to be, it used to be, you set the code by a set of 4 dip switches on the back, so, somebody came up with a box that just kind of cycled through all, we could set out with a little hack box and go through it. I mean, ultimately, that type of attack has gotten a lot more sophisticated on things, but, in theory, the way they're designing it, it shouldn't be so much of a problem, but, it also kind of comes down to, there's not a lot, I'm imagining the light bulb, they want it as cheap as possible, so they're not going to put a whole lot of processing power, they're not going to put a whole lot of code, and so the sophistication of what they're trying to do is probably not very high. So if, when they built it, and it's something unforeseen at the time when they built it, probably the guys who originally turned around and set the garage door for you, like, no one's going to set the time to flip all those little dip switches to figure out how to get it. I mean, that's going to take a, and then all of a sudden somebody comes up with a whiz-bang tool that says, hey, boom, here you're in.
There's a good example of the new style garage door opener, Steeler. So it's a 300 megahertz, it goes to your question, it's a 300 megahertz receiver. And the rolling code garage doors is how they work out. So every code is known to be the next code. But every code that didn't work before that actually is still valid. So, for example, when you're driving home, you're too far away from your garage door, you hit the button, your garage door won't open. That code is still valid forever. It never goes away. So what they've done is they have a device that they set just right next to your garage door that jams the signal, receives it from you, stores it, then the burglar comes back later, picks up the box, walks away. He's got one good valid rolling code for your house. And so he'd come back later, hit the button, drive his van in, and steal all your stuff. That's a
Same thing with the key fob that they came out with.
Yeah.
When they do a beacon or whatever test. The article, the way it was written, somebody was walking away from the vehicle, and their vehicle unlocked. And they turned around, hit the button to lock the vehicle, and it immediately unlocked. Well, there's a fob or piece of equipment out there that intercepts that code and sends it back to your vehicle, because your vehicle's sitting there just waiting for a code. It's either on or it's off, like a switch. So the last code it received, it locked. The next code it receives will unlock. The next code is unlocked. So there's stuff like that too.
For informational purposes only.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of the security.
That's
of
right.
this Internet of Things and wireless stuff is that it's
I-
wireless, it's pretty easy to.
The scariest thing I've seen from what I've read on Internet of Things isn't so much people attacking my devices. It's my devices. So these people are buying these Chinese-based or cheap knockoff light bulbs, or these cheap knockoff iPhone watches, smartwatches. And these people are sitting there scanning their network traffic because they're just tech people, that's what they do for fun. And all of a sudden, their watch, for no apparent reason whatsoever, pings a server in China. And you don't know why. Or your light bulbs are pinging out to a server in China, and it's like, what in God's name could it possibly be doing that for? Why would that be a thing it needs to do for no apparent reason? At what point does it change from just saying, ICMP saying, are you there? To, hey, here's some stuff I've been getting. It's yours now. I've been on their network for how long with intercepting man-in-the-middle key logs. Have at it. Because I bought the cheap, Me Watch instead of the iWatch. You know what I mean? And I was trying to save $5, and now I have my bank account, my Netflix. So I mean, that's my concern. Is not so much people pulling up to my house and messing with my light bulbs. It's me being cheap, buying crap, put it in my house, and what it's broadcasting out. So.
Well, yeah, and so what was it last year? Last year, a major car manufacturer, there's a lot of cars that are out there, decided, hey, let's use the cellular network, and we will, and this is on 60 Minutes if I remember right. Let's use the cellular network so we can do things on the car. And the cars had a built-in AT&T chip or something like that from a vendor. So the car itself had its own Wi-Fi or wireless cell phone part of it on it. And somebody figured out how to backdoor into any car that had this particular problem. And they could do, because of how the networking was done in the car.
Everything was sent plain text.
And then
amongst the car. Oh wow.
But they were.
The guys driving down the interstate, they kill the engine. Or they turn the volume all the way up. Everything in there now. Your steering, car steering. John talked about this once. We had a kid come here and ask a question about how do you make a self-driving car with you use a Raspberry Pi. Like John says, you don't have to. Most modern cars, when you steer the wheel, this is imaginary. You have force feedback occurring. Your computer is actually doing the steering for you. So these people would be able to steer your car, speed you up, slow you down, turn your lights on and off, turn your radio on and off, and this guy's just driving down the interstate during rush hour, and they killed his engine. And he's like, what do I do?
And don't forget, lock and unlock your doors.
Right. So, that's scary. That's why I said I'm worried about that stuff in the vehicle. The manufacturer's having the issues.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, it'd be really cool. Let's put this on the internet, because it'd be really cool. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, did you know we can disable your brakes and hit your accelerator while you're driving down the road? It's like, scary. And then I think even the cars that have the fobs, the start buttons and you have the fobs, I mean, they were pretty sophisticated, but they have two radio systems in it. There's one short-range radio and the one device has a long-range radio, and somebody built this little suitcase thing on it that they could take by the cars, and with a directional antenna, they could hit the fob, like, you go home, they could turn around and hit the fob up in your dresser or whatever, and somehow simulate that part and then be able to open doors and start the car. The trouble is, no one ever stole cars that way. They opened up trunks and stole stuff out of it because even though they could start your car, once they got it away from the major fob, they could never restart it again. So, but, there's all these convenience things on it. And then that, convenience causes problems, and security on it. So, back to my old sci-fi days, the remake of Battlestar Galactica, the only reason it survived the part of it is because they refused to put, networking technology on the starship, and, the whole rest of the fleet was dead because of networking issues. They got hacked. So, I'm sorry if that was my travel into geekdom. So that's my babble, and I'll answer any questions that I can answer and defer to most everything else. And I'm really good at making stuff up. So
60% of all statistics and facts are made up.
and Abraham Lincoln says on Wikipedia that you can't trust everything you see on the internet.
I think he made that update himself.
On a Hayes 2400 baud modem.
Anything else? Okay, thanks a lot, Scott.
Yep, thank you.